Let's do it. We've got one of my favorite guests and one of my favorite people in the world. I do love this man. No Diddy.
No. The guest.
Detroit Lions NSI. The man that you see asking, going back and forth with AG, with Dan Campbell, with Brad Holmes. He is not afraid of anybody. The legend, John the Doc Maakaron. Doc, welcome in. How are we doing?
It's Wednesday. I'm looking forward to it. I'm amped up. Everything's great. It was a busy news day today. Jared Goff on Netflix. You got the Lions they want to make some rule changes. You got the free agency, the draft upcoming, who's visiting, all that good stuff. There's so much good football to talk about. I love it. I bring the energy. 7 a.m. all night long. I'm excited. What are we talking about today, fellas? What's going on?
Yeah, Doc, I'll start us off right away here because I think this is something that we've had conversations for the last few weeks. I told the boys, I said, hey, I told them, I said, we might be hammering this home a little too much here, but the Lions edge room. And I think now you're starting to see things come into place a little bit and what Brad Holmes' mindset is with it. And obviously, we talked about it with you last week, and I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. And I didn't realize it until maybe 24 hours ago, where they're going to have basically the same that they had last year and add a rookie to this room and upgrade it that way, or potentially add some other guys throughout this offseason. How do you think so far, the AQM coming back? How are we feeling about that? And so far, what that room looks like as a whole, top to bottom?
Yeah, no doubt. And always shout out to the chat. You guys got great commenters. They're hilarious. They're funny, spot on. Message, ask any questions you want, interact, drop some tips and super chats, and we'll answer anything that you got that you want to know about. Now, look, I understand. It's the more you think about it, I love the fact that the fans are not happy because, look, the best way to win football games is to dominate in the trenches. And the last performance that the fans saw was not good enough on the offensive line and the defensive line. And you're running it back with the same crew. So I can't sit here and say, well, this football team with the similar current edge position opposite of Aiden is good enough. You got a lot of hope that you are doing to try and get over the hump. Remember, Jane Daniels is probably not going to take a step back. Matthew Stafford is not going to take a step back this year. They're looking to go forward. And we all saw, and I love the fans that are just like, more, give me an edge. You look at Azeez Ojulari, makes $4 million. You couldn't take a swing at him. Look, I know he's not complete. I can see that. But when I ask Kelvin Shepard directly, hey, okay, what's your philosophy on rushing the passer? And he, kind of gives some coach speak, and he says, we can tailor it to who we got on the roster. That indicates, hey, you had James Houston on the roster. He couldn't do much against the run either.
Yeah.
You drafted him, and he wasn't complete. So you don't think an Azeez Ojulari playing opposite of Aiden and next to Lee McNeil down the road would have been on 3rd and 8, had an opportunity to sack the quarterback? I mean, and here's the thing. Well, you can say he sucks. You can say, I get it. Oh, Ojulari sucks. You can say that. Well, the general manager of the world champion Eagles gives it credibility when he makes that move. So you're just going to say, well, Howie Roseman, signs players that suck. Come on now. If you have good coaches and you have the talent that you think you have, you could slot in a guy that's not exactly complete, but has a good skill to at least try and see what he's got. $5 million would have been nothing. Drop in the bucket. But look, you're running it back with the same crew. I get it. I would have loved a bigger name edge. I want more. I always want more because I want to sleep easy at night when we go into the postseason. We all got comfortable against Washington, and Washington ended your season. And I'm not going to be comfortable with the roster, even whoever they draft, because it's very similar. It's a talented roster, but your competition level goes way up this year, and you're playing all the toughest guys on the road. And you think you're just going to get all the calls and all the benefit of the doubt against Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes? You got to level up. And so you're putting the pressure on the draft and the coaching staff that is newly assembled. So I'm not happy, but I'm satisfied that that I believe in the coaching staff. I believe that they can get something out of the guys that they have. But if you're somebody that just sits there and is like, oh, why would you want Azeez Ojulari? Why would you want a guy with 6 sacks? Why would you want this guy? Why would you want, you want talent. Talent helps you win, and talent helps you feel better when you're competing against the best of the best. So I wanted Max Crosby. I wanted Myles Garrett. I still want Trey Hendrickson.
Give me them all.
Get them all, because you can never, ever have enough pass rush help. And right now we're in the hope department that Aleem McNeil gets healthier in the second half of the year, that Aiden Hutchinson is a player that returns to form. We're still in the hope phase, and I'm more in the, hey, give me somebody that is going to destroy the quarterback, because it's a mobile. How do you immobilize a mobile quarterback? You get into the backfield and destroy the quarterback, just like the Eagles did.
Yeah, Doc, just real quick, just following up on that, because I've said it all along. There's Zadarius Smith, and I know you probably said something on it last week and might have kind of changed your mind a little bit and have a different viewpoint this week. The Zadarius stuff, like, he's not signed anywhere. And it's like he's a guy that's coming off a 9-sack season. You see all these other guys who had 9 sacks, 8 sacks, go sign for 1 year, $6 million. I'm still under the impression, and maybe again I'm crazy, but when you connect the dots, and Doc, in this world you have to connect the dots and kind of read between the lines here. I think there's still a reason that, like Brad said, hey, we're gonna just move on from this contract, and we want to look at potentially bringing you back on a new deal, a different contract. And I think, like, the fact that he's not re-signed somewhere, Doc, makes me think they're trying to work out a new deal, maybe a 2-year deal, because it was already just a 1-year deal. Do you see that being a thing? And not even just do you see it, but like, would you like that to happen? Would you be happy with that?
Yeah. Now, remember, we know the rule about Doc and guys over 30, but I'll say this.
Take that away, though. Take that. Production.
Here's the benefit for Zadarius. Do you think Zadarius wants to come to training camp? No, he doesn't. He knows the deal. So here's the benefit for Zadarius. It is not a situation in which the door is closed. Absolutely not. I think if you're Zadarius, you sit back, you relax, you go on vacation, you date, you do what you got to do, and you wait and see. You got 32 teams now that are open for business, that you say, hey, if you get a guy and what happens, what drives up the price, Zadarius is going to look for the best situation for him. It could be the Lions, and it could be something where, the Lions are going to want to put a lot of heavy incentives, and the leverage is not in his favor. The best situation, and you never wish it to happen, but the best situation for Zadarius is a contender, a playoff team has a catastrophic injury to a defensive lineman, and boom, they're desperate. He can get up there and maybe make $10 million. First and foremost, did you see Danielle Hunter got 35 for 1 year? My God, 35.
I did not see that.
He just today re-signed Danielle Hunter. Look it up.
He was a free agent?
No, probably.
He got a contract, I believe, 1 year, $35 million. And fact check me, because there was so much information scrolling through.
I'll pull it up now, Doc.
Yeah, it's one of those deals where
1 year extension, $35.6 million extension.
$35 million for Danielle Hunter. That market is crazy. So if you're Zadarius Smith, if you can get $10 million, you can get a little bit more than you got. The Lions didn't want to pay that $7 million. There's a great chance.
So much money.
There's so much money, and the receivers are getting paid. The corners are getting paid. It's unbelievable how much it costs to bring in talent. But I would not be upset if they brought back Zadarius Smith. But right now he's in the camp where he wants the most money, and he wants to kind of avoid training camp. So if he signs towards the end of August, that'll benefit him and his legs.
And Doc, this question might be too early, but I think that's the fun in it, because you can always revisit and change. But we talk about money being spent this offseason. A lot of teams have done it. A lot of teams have put themselves in better spots. Lions, you could say, maybe not as much, but I think the Lions, they've made a move. They haven't been dead quiet like the Miami Dolphins this offseason. When you look at the NFC, you're way too early top 5 teams in the NFC so far before the draft. If you had to rank them, how do you think that top 5 shakes out right now?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I love the Rams. I love the Commanders. You could say, okay, let's start with the Eagles. Even though they make moves, you're the defending champ. You get the credibility. So Eagles, then I would go, everybody healthy. Lions are going to be in the mix. You got to give credit, and look, we're just talking mixing them here. The Commanders beat you, so we'll go Commanders 2, Lions 3, Rams 4, and you could put the Vikings up there as well. Even though J.J. McCarthy is a rookie, I do think that, he's in a great situation. Justin Jefferson's going to light it up for him. It's a good mix. The NFC is solid. You have teams still competing, battling in your division. I'm curious to see what the Packers are going to do. Bears are creeping up there, but Rams and Commanders and Eagles, I think the NFC East is going to be continuing to be a force for the Lions to have to deal with. But the Lions are right up there. 1, 2, 3. You could make the argument any spot, but they got contenders, and I can't wait to see this schedule that comes out. I can't wait to see how it slots, because if you start with the Eagles right away, I want to see how that would shake out. I want to see kind of where the ending goes. Could you imagine if they have, like, you end the year with like Cincy, Baltimore, and then a division game against the Packers? It's crazy, the next step here for the Lions. And here's the thing, guys, okay? And I guess it's fair to kind of ask, what's that nagging feeling? Like, what is giving all these positive people all this hope that the Lions are going to win a Super Bowl? It's their belief that the roster is good enough, that the roster is built very well, that the talent is going to all stay healthy and produce and get better. I can see a lot of that, but I still have this nagging doubt. It never goes away that, man, what shoe's going to drop? What is going to happen that's going to prevent the Lions from winning? And it's just, I ask myself, okay, why don't the positive people like seep into my veins in the chat and the commenters and everybody that beats me up and says, well, look at all these stats, and said, look, history's on my side. Yeah. And it's not SOL, it's not a curse, but I just think that when you have holes at a couple spots still, and they might get filled, but right now, as we're talking, they're not filled. So we're talking in the present day, I still feel like there's a hole at the guard spot and a hole opposite of Aiden, the edge spot. It's a big hole. And there's also a hole at defensive tackle because Ali McNeil's not going to be there. So you're counting on a Roy Lopez. You're counting on DJ Reader to fill that out with Pascal and Levi. I still have nagging doubts that the Lions are Super Bowl good, because the Super Bowl good is reserved for one team. One team stands. And to be the best of the best, you don't just get to say, well, the Lions are the best because they have all these talented players. They had all these talented players in 23, and they did not win. They should have been in the Super Bowl. They had a chance. So I have this nagging doubt. It doesn't mean that I don't think they're going to win double-digit games. I just have this nagging doubt still that the team is not good enough to be the standing one. They could be the standing two in 2025. They could get to the Super Bowl, but I don't have that feeling yet. And it's probably just the history. It's probably still feeling the ill effects of losing to the Commanders, having your best players get hurt, 20 guys on IR, just feeling like, okay, the positive fans are feeling like the Lions are going to stay all healthy. All the guys are going to produce, and all the teams that are competing with you are just not going to be good enough or not going to be as aggressive at the deadline. The Commanders, Rams, and Eagles are all maneuvering to try and stay atop of the division. It's not easy. So I'm just keeping it real. I have doubts. Doesn't mean I'm a hater. If you ask me a direct question, do I think the Lions are the best team in the NFL right now? No, but they got some work to do. Brad's got to bring and deliver the draft, free agency. When players get cut, he's got to do more. You got to do more. Literally, there's an example in 2023 when people were saying, go back and pull up, the chat, pull up some receipts from those positive people at the deadline in 23 that were like, nah, team's good enough. Nah, team's good enough. Team's good enough. Everyone was like, no, they're not. Get a receiver, get an edge, get this. We were all like, no, it's not good enough. Where was that? They just repeat the same playbook. I still have the same playbook of doubt, but I still think that, you just got to do more. You got to be aggressive to get over the hump, to get that final piece of the puzzle. And you got 4 good teams battling you. And I just think that there were moves that could have been made differently in this free agency too, that you could have maybe said, you could be a little bit more aggressive and take a swing at a couple guys.
Doc, you got to I don't know what is the obsession between you, Jeff, and Booner with one in the Philadelphia Eagles week 1 going into Philly, but it's got to stop. It has to. I mean, listen to what you just said. And then week 1 with 2 new coordinators, you want to go in there against the
Klotz is scared. We've
you go mono
against the Eagles. Yes, I would be.
Set the tone right away.
You set the tone. It teaches you right away where you're at, and also too, you also look at it like you're not going to be playing your best, but neither are they. So you could have a chance to get the win later on down the road. You get full effect Saquon with that offensive line. You get all the chemistry. So earlier the better against the better teams makes sense, because that first, remember how the Lions played this year? Those first 4 games, a little bit like the preseason. So you want them early to get a chance to get that W. It'll be a competitive contest. Later on, you want them in December when it's ice cold.
Give me them like week 3, Doc. Tune up a divisional game week 1. Give me the
Klotz
Tampa Bay Buccaneers again week 2. And then go in there when you got some momentum rolling. I don't want Terrion Arnold week 1 of year 2 matching up with A.J. Brown, okay? I don't want DJ Reed week 1 in Kelvin Shepard's scheme going up against Devontae Smith. Derek Barnes coming off an injury. Alex Anzalone had injuries last year. Jack Campbell not so much. But then you add in, Lee McNeil is not going to be 100% week 1. If you got a rookie starting out there week 1, here comes Saquon Barkley. Here comes Jalen Hurts. I'm cool. You got to fill in a void at guard, Jalen Carter. No problem. No, I'm cool. Give me him like first stretch of the season. That's fine. Week 1, start out the season 1-0. This division's going to be a grind, especially on the road. Get as many wins as you can. Week 1, no team is going to be in the best spot. But the Lions, I think, even more so, because they didn't just lose their offensive coordinator. The Eagles lost their offensive coordinator, but they kept Vic Fangio, and that defense is going to get better. Lions aren't in the same spot. I
respect exactly what you're saying, but if you just look at it really common sense wise, your best chance to win is week 1, because they're also now putting it together. The further that the Eagles get, their coaching staff gets in the mix, and you want to test out those young players too that they got that are going to be in some new spots. So if you just look at it from that perspective, week 1 gives you the best chance because you're probably more on an even keel. As the weeks get going, maybe some injuries creep in, maybe, and there's more film for the opposition to look at. So there's more ways to try and pick apart Jared Goff and that offensive line. Hey, week 1, maybe you don't know exactly how Christian Mahogany is going to look. Week 4, week 5, they're going to know exactly, hey, we're going to use the swim move, boop, boop, boop. We're going to try and take advantage. So in my humble opinion, you're wrong, but you make good points in that the Eagles, you have a lot of respect. You have a lot of respect for the Eagles, which you should, but your best chance to beat them is week 1. The further the year goes on, the further that they're going to be revved up to be the Eagles that that can whoop your ass.
Hey, Klotz, with all due respect, dude, you are absolutely wrong too. I'll say the same thing.
I'm thinking logical.
No.
Give me the former Super Bowl champs.
It's not logic.
No.
It's opinion for you. It's not logic. It's your opinion. Definitely not logic. Doc, I want to throw this out there. This is something I've been thinking about over the last few weeks since Iffy re-signed last week. What are your thoughts? How do you think they approach this whole safety situation? They're obviously not going to go in-house. And it feels like this was one of those positions, especially for how deep it's been with Iffy, that you don't want to just fully sit back and lean on, hey, let's hope a rookie steps in, because it's probably not even going to be a first or second round rookie unless Brad has his eye on someone. But you don't want to fill that hole. Brad says he doesn't fill holes in the draft. What do you think they do with the safety spot? Is it in-house right now? Like I'm drawing a blank on what's his name from Notre Dame. The Notre Dame kid that played last year a lot. He was really good too, or at least he was decent. Or do you think that they go out still in free agency and say, hey, let's get a new safety in here to be a depth piece?
Yeah, no, look, well, first and foremost, unfortunately I had to, report the bad news that Brandon Joseph got a situation legally.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Got himself released. I reported that.
He was gonna be good too, Doc.
He was gonna be good.
I love Brandon Joseph.
Yeah, he was gone. So you got right now, unfortunately.
That's so disappointing.
Maurice Norris is your safety right now. It's on the roster. So yeah, you got work to do. You got to upgrade.
Morris Norris.
It's not Morris Norris, but that's how we all call him, right? Maurice Norris, if that's the accurate way to say his name, is the guy. You could go to Quandre Diggs. You could look to veterans, but I do think you look in the draft. You do got to look at the situation. Yeah, just to remind the chat, Brandon Joseph, we knew right away. We got wind that, the story happened. We talked about it. We got wind that he was doing, allegedly was driving under the influence, and he got pulled over. And unfortunately, once he got released, we were like, got to call the police. And I was the first. Me and Christian were the first to get that up there and have to report that. So the second that happened, we all knew, all right, he's not with the team anymore. He was good too. He was developing. He was a player. But unfortunately, it's a situation in which the safety spot is a question mark. But you got two really good ones right now, and you're looking for depth pieces, guys that will come in and fill that out. But I do think that could be filled out with a veteran and in the draft as well. So we'll start to take a look at that as well. We've been definitely looking at defensive line, defensive tackle, linebackers. We have not, but we probably will over the next, maybe this weekend, identify and target and watch some film on the safeties. But everybody, man, you guys and the chat and everybody loves the defensive line. Like we've gone through 30 potential defensive linemen opposite of Aiden that people want, and now some linebackers too. We'll start to shift to some defensive backs and the safeties at Lions on SI. But you're right. It's a position of need, and you're not going to go into the year with Maurice Norris as the guy behind Branch and Kirby Joseph.
Hey, Andrew Makuba, Doc, out of Texas. That's my guy. Boone likes Latham Ransom out of Ohio State. There's a lot of good safeties you get in the middle of this draft. Kind of same question. I know I've asked you this before, but kind of as the draft's getting closer, more free agents are getting signed. You brought it up already, but there's a hole at that guard spot. And I would think that if they were going to bring back, or I shouldn't say bring back, sign a veteran, probably would have been like, hey, let's immediately figure out who our guy is. Might have not been that day, but you saw the hype with Will Hernandez. Do you think Will Hernandez comes to Detroit? And if he doesn't, where do you think the Lions in the draft go to kind of fill that Kevin Zeitler void? Because you look, there's a couple guys on the back end of that first round that you could be like, okay, that's kind of a steal for the players that they actually are late in the first.
Yeah, no, it's one of those deals where I think that people are looking at, okay, you have options. You could put Mahogany at left and switch back. I think that's an option to really think about seriously, guys, is Mahogany at left guard. You move Graham Glasgow back because he didn't play good. Like he didn't play good at left guard. You switched his position up and he didn't perform at the level that you thought. Maybe you get him back to his natural spot at right guard and you position him to be somebody that can do some things, and you go, okay, you got to get some value out of Graham Glasgow because it wasn't that great. All right. And I was surprised too, because he dealt with some injuries. Yeah. He dealt with some things that maybe weren't, you just dealt with some things and he didn't perform well, and it showcased against the Commanders. So breaking it here, we did a 32 team mock draft at SI on Tuesday, and it kind of fell that way. And for those of you listening now, you'll know, and I'll share a little bit why, but not all of it. At 28, I took Tyler Booker.
Come on.
Tyler Booker, that's the guy that was available at the spot for 28 for me. 6'5", 325. I think he could do some things. You also could look to Georgia and Tate Ratledge, Dylan Fairchild again from Georgia, Miles Frazier.
Love Dylan.
Yeah, so there's some names you could look at that guard spot if you do want to go in the first round. Menu is not, TJ Lang threw it out there to maybe they'd look at him at guard, but he's too big to play guard. Like he's just too big. They want him to be tackle. And I would think that you guys have been, talking about it and speculating too. Maybe after this year, you move Penei Sewell to left, and you hope that in 26, Manu can be the right tackle with a young offensive line. So I'm very curious how it will shake out. But I picked Tyler Booker. I've liked what he's been able to do. I feel like he's a player that can do some things, and I think is with the best of the bunch. I don't know if he's going to fall at that spot, but we'll see. But just looking down the list here of the names that I put down, you look at it and you say, maybe Hayden Connor from Texas. I watched the Texas offensive line all year, fell in love with them as well. So there's some names to pay attention to that you can have at the guard spot. I don't think that a rookie will get the starting opportunity, but if Graham Glasgow struggles at the early part of the year, then you recognize you can fit maybe one of your guys, the rotational guards, to look in there, maybe the rookie by the midpoint of the season, if Graham Glasgow. But I do feel like Graham Glasgow probably has an opportunity to kind of get back and play right guard. But if not, if they try it again, if they run it back, we'll see. You're taking a risk, but we'll see which offensive lineman. There are some good guard tackle combos out there that'll have a chance, but do you throw them out there right away when you got Graham Glasgow? So we'll see.
Hey, are you pretty confident in Taylor Decker next year? Like, do you have, is there like a world? Because we had this conversation all the time. And Klotz, obviously, he talked about the trading Taylor Decker potentially, and just because he's kind of, it felt like last year was the year where he's starting to degress. And I've been on the side, and Jeff's kind of been on it with me to where, hey, it might have just been one of those injury years. You see it all the time, especially in offensive linemen. They have a whole year where it's just beat up. Do you think it's more so the sense of that, or do you think it's kind of the side to where there is that degression and we might see it again this year as well?
Yeah, right. It was not the best year for Taylor Decker. Unfortunately, with the contract extension, you trust him. Jared Goff absolutely loves Taylor Decker. You hope that he stays healthy. Yes, he did battle some things. It was up and down year, but I do think that this year probably could be his last year. There'll be some conversations that will be had based on his contract, his age, and the fact that you got a young cat waiting and developing. So I'm very curious how he rebounds, but he's one of the OGs. He is one of the guys that definitely has earned the respect of a lot of people. He's a warrior. He's somebody that does, when he's healthy, play well. But yeah, he did have some performances that you say, you gotta make sure it's a little bit more steady. And the entire offensive line has to step up, especially in the postseason. So the conversation is starting to be had. It's looked at. But I do think that 25 left tackle will be Taylor Decker. You just hope that he stays healthy. And then you also, too, got to pay attention. This draft will tell you, look, I do not think that Frank Ragnow is going to retire, but you always got to look to the future at any moment. He's been battling stuff. He performed very well. He's still at the top of his game, but does he want to keep with all the rehab, all the work that he's got to do to get out there? So pay attention. If Brad Holmes takes a swing late in the draft on a center, somebody that you think could be the next Frank Ragnow, pay attention to those names, because you never know. Maybe not this year's draft, but you got to always look to the future, because with each passing year and just the sheer number of injuries that he's battled, you got to make sure that you pay attention. And I saw the name that popped up there, and a lot of people are talking about it because a reporter talked about UCLA's edge, Femi Oladijo. Yeah, he's great. But just at this very moment, just knowing that the Lions, the reporter put out that the Lions have strong interest at this present time. The Lions, don't want to say sources, those that I like to use the word, those that know, told me today directly that as of today, he does not have a top 30 visit yet with the Lions, but the word was used yet. So officially, there is interest, clearly, obviously going out, the Lions at UCLA, the pro day, all that good stuff. But in terms of official visits, that has not been put on the books.
Do you have any notable names, Doc, for I would say like notable names where people would be keeping an eye on that have had top 30 visits with the Lions for the people?
Well, the name that's the biggest one is Gray Zabel. That's the name that you hear that he's somebody that if he's there, I don't think he's going to be there. That's why I'm not as hopeful.
Was that today?
It was reported today that he is a name that is going to be on the list or had a top 30 visit. So definitely, I mean, you would have to meet with him. He's one of the top guys, and he is he's somebody that can fit everything that you want. But I don't think he's going to be there at 28. You'd have to move up to get him, in my humble opinion. I look at it like all the edge rushers eventually will probably peek in and come in, but the list has been pretty quiet. I think 3-4 names I think we have on our tracker. Go check out the Lions on SI tracker as we update. I think there's only a couple names on there. The surprise, I think, was the Georgia or the running back. I believe that there was some interest as well. So there's always going to be surprises, but I look at it from the perspective of that first round. Do you go with the edge? Do you risk it? It's a tough call, right? Because it's going to depend on who's there at 28. But I just think that you go best edge available. That's what I would do. I think the fan base will be very happy, and you calm people down. If you get the guy, the further down you go, it doesn't mean that it's not going to be a hit, but you take more risks the further down you go as teams start to load up. So I'm not waiting till 60 to get an edge rusher. I want that edge rusher at 28 or move up and get one of the good ones. So I'll ask you guys, because dueling mock drafts, I put out the podcast today. Christian had, Mel Kiper had James Pierce. Daniel Jeremiah had Mikael Williams. Christian said that Mikael Williams is just better against the run. Pierce is too risky. You guys in that same boat between Pierce and Williams? I like Mikael Williams a little bit better.
Mikael's good. I think
Pierce has more upside, but more
the
risk.
ceiling's higher.
Ceiling's higher, but he's got more risk. So it doesn't seem to me that that's the guy that the Lions would take a chance on. And I just kind of feels like if they're both there, I feel like the Lions would play it safe and go with Mikael Williams.
I think if you look at it, for Brad Holmes, we know Brad Holmes isn't a risk guy. And I know what Klotz is already going to say, because we've had this conversation a lot. James Pierce is the guy. You could probably make an argument. If you take away all if there are issues or all of that, whatever it's going on with him, if you take all of that away from every player in this draft, he's probably the second best edge in this draft. And it's probably Abdul Carter, and then it's probably either James Pierce and then Mikael Williams. I think it's both of those guys. So I guess it depends on how you feel. When you say it, hey, Williams is better with the run. And I know Klotz is and I'm sure Klotz, you agree with me, even though we disagree. We think James Pierce.
I'll say my piece.
But if we're talking about with Brad Holmes, Brad Holmes does bigger guys that are good stopping the run. So if I would say, hey, let me get in the mind of Brad Holmes, I'm guessing Mikael Williams is would be his pick. But I would go James Pierce just based off of if you want someone across from Hutch. Doc, we sat there at the combine, and we sat across from Brian Baldinger, and it was just us. It was us four just in the concourse, just by ourselves. And he looked us dead in our eyes and said, boys, Aiden Hutchinson on one side, James Pierce Jr. on the other. That's what I want to see. And when he said, when Baldy says that, you listen and you go, okay. And he goes, that would be one of the best duos in the NFL. And when he said that, I was like, Klotz, all of us looked at each other and went, okay, we want James Pierce.
Doc, and this isn't just directed towards you, okay? Because I don't think Mikael Williams is a bad player. But if James Pierce is sitting there at 28, what is the risk of taking James Pierce at 28 compared to trading up 20 spots for Jamison Williams, trading up for Giovanni Manu, trading up for Broderick Martin? You're taking risk on all these players, and you have James Pierce sitting in your lap at 28. I don't care if he's, again, this is not directed just toward you, Doc. I don't care if he's not that good against the run, because you have Marcus Davenport, Roy Lopez, DJ Reader, Aiden Hutchinson, Aleem McNeil. You go down the list. What does everybody do? Check the box wise. Stop the run. Who outside of Aiden Hutchinson gets to the quarterback consistently? Not a shot to him. They extended Aleem McNeil, so when he can hopefully reach that step, they don't got to pay him that money as far as a pass rusher from the interior that can do that. There's no one on this defensive line outside of Aiden Hutchinson that can get to the quarterback. Jack Campbell doesn't get to the quarterback. Alex Anzalone doesn't get to the quarterback. Hopefully to see Derek Barnes that he can get to the quarterback. But when it comes to getting sacks, Al-Qadim Muhammad, who they brought in week 7, week 8, he was second on the team in sacks. I mean, what they need someone to get to the quarterback. I don't think Mikael Williams is a bad player. Not at all. But again, he's what have the Lions always done? Get somebody that can stop the run. They can stop the run. They can do that. They have enough of that already. They need somebody on the other side of Hutch that can get to the quarterback. That's my piece. But
James Pierce Jr.
Because if the Lions don't get him,
guys,
who's going up to get James Pierce if the Lions don't get him?
Listen,
Doc, Howie Roseman. He's going to be
the comp, too, which is crazy. Brian Burns, that's the comp. But teams are saying that there's some character stuff, stuff that they rub him the wrong way. It's just the way that he presents himself that, listen, the Lions are all about the grit. And also, too, the tape, he was up and down. The tape showcased there were some times where maybe he wasn't doing the things he's got to do against the run and being a willing tackler. The Lions say you got to earn the right to rush the passer. They want you to be gritty and do the small things. There's a chance, and you say, well, what's the risk? Well, the risk is you get a player that wants to do things his way, and the Lions want to break you down and say, okay, you're going to do this and that, and we want to enhance your skills, but we need you to do a couple different things, at the different spots along the defensive line. So, Maybe they want you in coverage. Maybe they want you to do a couple different things at different spots. So the Lions are always about, hey, the full circle. So that's why they want a guy that's good against the run and good against the pass and can be reliable. So I'm curious. I do think he's got upside. You can't beat talent. I do think that, when you turn on the tape, the potential, it would be tough to pass on him. I don't think he'll be there at 28. So it's a but he's talented. He's a talented guy, but there's some level of risk. And these guys, when they do these talks, that's the most important part is, hey, do we feel like you can fit in what we want? And also, too, the Lions want guys that when it's time to practice hard, it's practice hard every single time that your name is called.
Yeah.
It's not Monday and Friday. It's every single day. Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. You got to practice hard and do the job. So
that's where you get into a tough spot with Brad and I know like Lucas and me. We had these conversations to where you bring a guy like James Pearson to where your culture is already built to where you should be able to let some of those guys adapt into your culture, and you should be able to change a few guys to be able to fit in. But again, like then you get into that weird point in the middle to where there's that point to where it's like, do you think Brad will do that, or do you think Brad's going to still stay like if he didn't get Jalen Carter, what makes you think he's going to be like, let me get James Pierce? And it feels like he's going to stay pretty hard on his stance on that. That's at least my opinion. That's why for me it's hard to be like push the button really hard for James Pierce. Like I would love him. Like he would be one of my top picks, but I just try to stay a little realistic with it to where it feels like we know what Brad's going to do. And it's like, this is one of those things to where if you're going to be one of those people who just pound the table for James Pierce and you're going to complain, like what the end result's going to be. It's probably Brad Holmes is going to do what he did with Jalen Carter on it, and he's going to pass on him. And guess what? Like I just have to hear you complain again for another month about it. And I really, to be quite frank, and Klotz is probably over there smiling like, I don't want to hear it because I told you back here in March that's going to happen. So it's like, I just don't want to hear it because I had to deal with it. Jalen Carter. I had at our old employer, and Easy's going to laugh about this. I started a jar that anytime you brought the word Jalen Carter up for the next month after the draft, I didn't want it. You had to put $1 in there because I didn't want to hear it. So it's like, what's going to happen. You know what Brad's about. Like it is what it is. Whether you agree or disagree with it, you just know.
But they were very patient with Jamison Williams.
They were for sure. Yeah,
they're very patient with him. So he's got talent. So they're not opposed, but maybe JMO is the reason why James Pierce can't come. They're like, no, we don't want some guy that doesn't read the fine print and ends up doing side stuff that we don't want. You know what I mean? You just never know. And that's why the interview is so key. You just never know. You give a guy $15 million straight up in your bank account. You just never know what that's going to do to somebody. Does that mean he's going to, still grind and work and want to develop, or is he somebody? That's what they got to figure out. And that's what they got to figure out is, he's got talent, but does he dedicate himself? And also too, the other part that's crazy, which I don't think, looking at it from that perspective, and that's why, if I ever was physically of that stature, I don't know if I would be truly a great football player because I love life. I love sports. I love cards. I love hanging out. I love movies. I like a bunch of things that I'm into. The Lions want guys that from the time June and July hit are all about football. Like they wake up, watch film, go to the facility, stay there, be the last guy in. You got a Cully Freeman that's there at like 4:30 in the morning trying to beat golf every day. They want ballers that just are addicted to football. And it's tough. It's tough to be that way because you got to be committed to greatness all the time. And I'm finding myself now, grinding the same level of grind. Do I have the same level of grind as I did 2 years ago? I'm grinding, but not to the same level that I was. I've been lucky, been fortunate, got help, and I have 2 great kids. I got a lot of interest in broadcasting and podcasting and interviewing and things behind the scenes of helping other people too. So it's just unbelievably tough to be dedicated to just one thing to be great. And that's what you got to be great. That's what the Lions want. They want addicted people that when they go home, they're texting each other, texting the coaches, hey, what about this move? What about that move? Does James Pierce have that? For a first-round pick, you got to make sure that he does.
And Doc, we had the conversation yesterday, and I'm interested just because we didn't get to see much of him this year, but a bright spot for this defense, especially in the cornerback room, could potentially be Ennis Rakestraw. What do you think? Just because, again, we only saw a sample size of him. He was dealing with injuries, second-round pick, and he was somebody that you, like Lions fans, I think they had to see to get an opinion on because he was a little bit undersized. What do you think his role is going to be in 2025? Because he's not obviously going to be a starter, but I feel like he's probably going to be better at nickel. He could play on the outside for sure, but I think he's suited for a nickel. You got to Meek Robertson there. So what do you think is going to be the plan for the second-round pick last year?
Yeah, it's great. Perfect segue. I assigned Vito to write how many open spots are there for the starters on the Lions. You can check that out on Lions on SI. We only think 3: guard, edge, and nickel. And I think that Ennis Rakestraw clearly is not going to be a starter in regards to on the outside. I don't think that it's going to be, I think it's going to be DJ Reed and Terrion. Yep. And so the spot that he's going to battle for is that nickel spot. I think that it's a perfect battle. I can't wait to see it. Him and Amik, and let's go battle it out. He's got to have a much better sophomore year because it was a wasted year. It was unfortunate. You could have used his help. I don't want to say, listen, yeah, let me put it in a more subtle way, in a more gentle way for those that just are loving Brad Holmes. Ennis had an injury history prior to the draft. It was clear. Everybody brought it up. You still drafted him. He dealt with more injuries. If you took somebody else that maybe was, a little bit more healthier, when Amik goes down, you probably have somebody else. That could be another pick where you could say, hey, you went with a guy that had an injury history coming right out of just before the draft. If you would have went with a different defensive back, I haven't looked, but the thought just popped in my head. When Amik goes down, you could have had another body. That could have been that spot. So that's another situation that is tough in that Brad has taken some chances. And in the NFL, you don't get too many chances to redshirt players. It's a win now mode. If you're going to invest a second rounder, you got to handle it. Your third round pick, you got to kind of get in and be competing. Now, the Lions have a good team, and there's only really 3 spots, but one of those spots is for Ennis to take. And man, it's good competition. And I think that it's just going to benefit him and Amik Robertson. His role has got to be a physical defensive back, stay healthy, get bigger, and stay on the field. The talent's there, but right now he's leaning more towards Iffy than he is toward Terrion. And you just got to swing it the other way because he said he's going to commit to getting his body right, getting healthy, but you can't be out of the lineup when you're one of the 2 defensive backs when your team doesn't draft too many of them.
Do you think, just real quick, Doc, before Boone goes, do you think he can kind of, like, a good way to look at it is like he's this year's Emmanuel Mosley that we've been waiting for the last 3 years as far as Amik and Emmanuel Mosley at the beginning of camp? There was some talk that Emmanuel Mosley could win that nickel spot. Obviously, we've never truly seen Emmanuel Mosley out on the field for meaningful snaps. Do you think that's the way that we can kind of look at it?
Yeah. Look, I saw the commenter saying that he already predicts Amik's going to win. I didn't say that Ennis is going to win the job. I said it's going to be a competition. That's what his spot's going to be. I don't think that he's going to top, I don't think he's going to top Reed. It's interesting with the defensive backs, right? I wish Khalil Dorsey didn't get hurt. Kendall Vildor was a player that I just think that he's going to get another opportunity somewhere else. It's one of those deals where he was okay. But yeah, we are tomorrow morning, I think after my mock draft, we have a big board of defensive backs that we're looking at now. Vito, I think, is going to research some names to pay attention to, big-bodied potential defensive backs that can come in here and handle business. So it's going to be interesting to see. Man, I just also, too, wish Emmanuel Mosley would have worked out. Could you imagine? Yeah. Could you imagine that you could have slotted in Ennis Rakestraw and Emmanuel Mosley when Amik Robertson goes down if they're healthy? So I just, that's one of the things that, well, you go back and forth in your head. Well, everybody's hurt. Well, you don't want guys coming off of like significant injuries, and then you brought them back after an injury plagued year with the Lions. The 24 year with Mosley was tough. That was a charity year. That was tough to bring him back again. It's one of those deals where I do think that defensive back is another position that you look at in the draft, and you want to make sure that depth position is pretty solid. It stunk that Khalil Dorsey and Kendall Vildor just end up didn't work out to the fullest possibility in terms of the secondary. Good special teamers, but not opportunities to start.
Doc, I just want to kind of going back to the draft here because my mind's racing with this now, and I'm starting to think of more ideas and things that I think we're starting to get into that season now with Brad. It feels like free agency is starting to die out for that. If you had a bet here and say, hey, let's place a bet on this, do you think it's more likely for Brad to trade up, trade back, or stay at 28?
Yeah, here's the deal. I'm aggressive. I want to trade up, get the best guy, get up into 15 to 20, and get the best edge rusher that you can find. If it's a Nick Scourton, you get him. If you feel that your guy's there, you move up and get him. Here's the problem. First round picks get that 5th-year option, and that 5th-year option is going to be massive. So I think there is, when you look at it money-wise and budget-wise, if you trade out of the first round, you don't got to worry about that fit. You pay less. You only got to worry about the contract for 4 years. And if you want to move on, because you can't pay everybody. We talked about it today on the podcast. We talked about it. I wrote about it too. That was the first thing I thought about was, my God, T. Higgins and Jamar Chase and Derek Stingley and all these edge rushers have made it impossible. I mean, it's impossible that the Lions can keep Branch, Laporta, Jahmyr Gibbs, Jack Campbell, Jamison Williams. You're not keeping all these players. Who are the odd men out? I think the guy that was on the cover of my story is the odd man out. And I think you got to do them the same way that T. Higgins got treated. 5th-year option, franchise tag, 5-6 years under control, and you move on. I don't know if you give Jamison Williams $23 million a year or 28 or more. No. You can replace that level of productivity in the draft for cheap. The receivers are coming out in droves. So, but I mean, I can't sell that to anybody. Nobody's going to buy that. It's tough because Jamison's a good player. He's a good explosive player in your system, but Brad loves his own guys. And if I'm foreshadowing, and I don't think it's going to fail, but if it ends up in 2-3 years that it doesn't end up in a Super Bowl, the story will be that Brad didn't adapt to be able to mix adding external options with great talent on this football team. He fell in love with too many of his own guys. And that can be a problem because he loves his own guys because he researched them all. He did all the interviews. He has more trust in the process. And, you could make some arguments that some of the guys he's already given money to, maybe a Lee McNeil, you say, well, you could have maybe not made that move when you did. Jared Goff, you could have, done him a little bit more like a Sam Darnold and kept him on the contract he already had. So you could have been a little bit more shrewd in certain areas if it doesn't work out. So we'll see how it all plays out with some of these contracts. And it's just wild to see how these contracts are going to impact all these guys with the draft. So I look at it like, financially speaking, don't be surprised if the Lions move out of the first round. Cheaper.
I don't hate that, Doc. I really
it's
don't.
Cheaper. It really is cheaper.
Especially it's cheaper, and then at the end of the day, there's more options that you can do in the second round. Where if you're sitting there late in the first, very similar type of players. Something that
maybe you get a second. Yeah, maybe you get a second and another day 3 pick. You get 2 picks, and you can fill up in spots that you want, like we said, safety and cornerback too.
Come on now, I'm all for it. But Doc, we're about to talk about it after you leave, but I do want to get your perspective on it. And I know that we've talked about the whole J.J. McCarthy situation, but what do you is there any hype in your opinion with the Aaron Rodgers going to Minnesota and just your whole perspective of what you think is going to happen with Minnesota? Because you just said that they could be a top 5 team in the NFC next year. Well, do you think they're kind of on the same track as they were last year after Darnold leaves with J.J.?
Yeah, I look at it like if you're Aaron Rodgers, the team that's just sitting right there and square in the face that's perfect for you is the Steelers. They got receivers. They got a culture. They can kind of insulate you a little bit. Mike Tomlin can protect you from all the nonsense. He'll deflect all the stupid questions that he gets asked about the things that he does. Steelers I think the culture's right there. You go right in there, and it's like the better version of the Jets. You get a defense, you get a coach that's always been in the postseason. They have a run game. They have a philosophy that's conducive to helping you. So I like the Steelers. I don't like the fit. I think that Rodgers with the Vikings. Yeah, I mean it makes sense. There's talent, but I think there's better talent with the Steelers on the AFC side. So it's a fun division too, though. Could you imagine Burrow, Lamar Jackson, and you got Aaron Rodgers? Oh my goodness. JJ, look, if you're going to trade Sam Darnold, and
He's
I
ready.
was wrong, or excuse me, if you're going to let him go, if you're going to move on from Sam Darnold after the season that he had, I would have said, okay, that means that you have trust that JJ McCarthy, Michigan man, who's mobile, athletic, learned under Darnold, is going to be able to adapt and succeed. And you got the pieces. You got a nice running back. You got 2 great receivers. You got all-world number 1 receiver potential in Justin Jefferson. You're set up for success, and you got a coach that's a quarterback guru. So you're set up for success. I don't think they're 14 win good, but they're pretty good. And I do think that JJ McCarthy, outside of the physical strength, the tools, there's just some guys that just have those intangibles, mobility, athleticism, grit. He's going to do some things, especially knowing that he sat there for a year, learned. I think there's good opportunities for him to excel and have a good NFL career. But it takes time. And I think that'll be a great opportunity to see where Kelvin Shepard's at when we play the Vikings, because you got to make sure that you confuse the hell out of a rookie, show him some looks that he's never seen before. So I would love to see DJ Reed pick off JJ McCarthy. That'd be great.
Come on now.
that would be something. Doc, I want to throw a couple questions here from the chat for you. First, we'll do Steve Lehman. Said, Doc, potential on Josiah Stewart in the second round. I believe Josiah, Josiah out of Michigan.
Yeah. Michigan's pro day is Friday. I'm so busy on Friday. I've always wanted to go to these pro days, but it's so limited in how much time you get. And I'm not a super insider, so I don't think I could watch the workouts. So I'm not going, but you'll hear someone will go locally and write about these guys. Good player, potential, good potential. I like Grant a little bit more, but I love the Michigan guys. They're going to make noise. They're going to be good players in this league, and credit to Wink Martindale for what he's been able to do. I like the class that Michigan's bringing to the table. Mason Graham's going to be successful wherever he goes. I talked to a lot of the guys at the combine, and they just exuded confidence. I was nice. See, for all you guys that don't think the Spartans can be professional, I asked one of the Michigan guys, what's the lasting memory you have of winning the Natty? And he talked about the older players and the work ethic that they did. The player that's going to be most interesting out of Michigan, I don't know, just based on the way his season went, is Will Johnson. I think he's good, but he's got that injury situation that you go, hey, did you really work hard enough to get back on the field? What's your grit level? What position you're going to get into? It's a very fine line between being Jeff Okudah and Derek Stingley. So where does he slot in? I'm curious to see. And also too, the Vikings. Let's just laugh for a minute. The Vikings were dumb enough to interview Jeff Okudah and then ink him to a contract. Like, did they not watch the nonsense that happened with Atlanta and Houston? He is typically what you would call a UFL defensive back. That's his capabilities. So
I'm be a great coach one day, Doc.
Yeah, great coach. Good guy. But unfortunately, we don't want to use the labels, but the label that people are using, he's a Jag. He's just a guy. And just they signed him. Jag, just a guy. And I love it. Amon-Ra is going to go. He's going to get like 5 penalties against Jeff Okudah. I can't believe, that debate that people had that we had to sit through about Jeff Okudah, knowing that you don't. And there were people, guys, too. Remember, too, you can always throw those positive Pete's. The positive Pete's tried to sell us Jeff Okudah. They almost got me. They were like, oh, he's going to develop and he's good. And everyone was like, and your former friends were like, that guy is slow. That guy can't play the position. Our eyes tell us. What tells you that he can play the position? Nothing tells you that he can play the position, but you guys are negative. And I'm like, all right, I'll let you try and sell me that nonsense. But then he kept getting hurt. And then you're just like, man, he's all up in his head. Too serious. Like, it was written all over the wall that it was not going to be good. But there were people trying to sell that Jeff Okudah was going to be, oh, you can't use that kind of language. I'm like, look, it's football. You know, you can either cover or you can't.
Yeah,
and everybody, you don't have to be a pro scout to see it. Like, we're all standing there going, that guy can't cover. He ain't fast enough. He ain't fast enough. And remember when the people the positive Pete's are out there trying to sell you, they have an agenda. They want to talk to these guys nonstop. I'm of the opinion, you watch ball, your gut will tell you. You can see it if a guy can play or not. You don't need to be a pro scout. Now, it's an interesting thing to know if this Vikings team is going to be better than the Bears. I can't wait to see the way that the division shakes out this year. But the Lions are still kings of the mountain. But the Vikings and Bears are trying to get better.
Let's see. Do we have any more questions? There was one here, actually, another edge rusher, Doc. I got to find it here. Anything on Braden Swinson out of LSU, Doc? Have you watched some of his film? Are you familiar with his game? Anything on him for the Lions?
LSU. That's a unique SEC program, man. You have a coach there. You have a coach there that I don't think is authentic. I look at that program and go, man, you dropped off from Ed Orgeron. You dropped off huge. I look at that program and they should always be at the top. When Nick Saban had that situation, when he had that thing purring, that thing was sweet. That thing was awesome. And that program should be with the Alabamas of the world. It's hard. It's hard to replicate, you know. I like the 6'4", 255 nature of his game. I do think that you know the time that he spent with Oregon was always interesting too. I saw him come across. Look, with these edge prospects, number one thing that's important is, can you set the edge consistently? He can do that. This is a player that if you can get him in the right round, I would not be terribly upset with an athletic. I think his relative athletic score, if I remember, is in the zone where Brad Holmes likes it. I have my list because first and foremost, you got to know, guys, what Brad Holmes likes. He likes the RAS between 8.5 and higher, and I think his is up there in that zone when I put it on my list. I like what he can bring to the table. I would not be disappointed with that selection. I do think that there's opportunities that when you look at these players that maybe, they don't take one in the first round, they go a little bit lower because it's a deep, deep class. And it's one of those deals. And someone said it. I knew your chat would say it because I was at dinner with my father-in-law and he said, Johnny, I said, what's up, father-in-law? He said, Terrion doesn't look like he can cover. And I said, father-in-law, it's a little early. It's a little bit one of those deals where I do think that he has the closing speed that will develop. He has the stickiness that you need. It was a brutal first year, but he showed traits that are a little bit different than Okudah for the second year. So I said, yeah, he's got some things to work on. But he did say, the recognition on some plays needs to be improved. But remember, it's a rookie. So this is a big year for Terrion Arnold. Big year because you got to start to show. But he's not a bust yet. I do think that Terrion footwork is getting better, recognition, and the Lions are trying to help him out with the Terrion Arnold rule where he can be as handsy as he wants. It's not an automatic first down penalty. The Terrion Arnold rule is going to be hilarious if they get that pass, which they won't, but that's a classic, hilarious move by the Lions. We don't want pass interference calls to be first downs. That is hilarious and really genius in my opinion. But really in the end, if you want to go all the way, you need a not destroy our quarterback rule. Like you can only let I was clowning around today with these rules. I was like, hell, if you're going to pay a quarterback that can't move, throw out a rule. Hey, you can only send 2 defensive linemen. Period. A combination. 1 lineman, 1 linebacker can get to the quarterback. That's it. And try and run that so that Jared Goff can dominate the league. But hey, I love the rules. I love that they're trying. The IR rule is the best one that they submitted. That one will help teams. They'll never pass the wild card rule. That the owners will never ever. That'll get shot down like 20. That'll get shot down 30-2. And the flag one could be an interesting debate. The IR one probably has a chance to pass.
What was the IR one, Doc? I didn't see that one.
It's a rule where the impact of the roster is different based on the number of guys that get hurt. Like if there's an elevated number of guys on the IR, they want to change it so that certain guys don't count on against your roster. So you can just add more bodies. Okay. And that's the third one. They submitted 3. That's the one that's the most realistic, is the IR one. Look at that. Look at the details of that. It just basically, if you're getting a bunch of guys that are on IR, the way in which you can get them back maybe cannot count against your active roster. So you can get more guys available. You just need more bodies. And the certain active number of players on your day is stupid. You need to be able to have 55. You need to have about, I'm of the opinion, you need to have 60 players on your active roster, 15. I think you need to up it from 69 to 75. That's perfect. I think 60 guys on the active roster, 55, 56 active on game day, and 15 guys on your practice squad. 75. More jobs and more opportunities. So that way the Lions can see if they can top their own record, get 30 guys on IR.
Hey, Doc, last question here, because I want to make sure Schiff got put it in here before and I missed it, and he just threw it in there again. But he just said if the Jags were to trade Trayvon Walker, do you think the Lions could make a move for him? This is like another one of the kind of like Trey Hendrickson, obviously maybe not as big, but one of those kind of major moves, it feels like.
Yeah, I like the idea there. The problem is that it's not consistent enough, There's a reason why I think Aiden was definitely the right call to go. Should have went number 1. But Walker with a new defensive line coach could be intriguing, but the cost might be something that gets prohibitive up there. He's going to be wanting probably some numbers too to get up there. So I would say that if they put him on the market, I do not think that he would come to the Lions. I don't think the Lions want a guy that, if they really wanted him, they could have moved up and got him.
Yeah, I think that's fair. That'll be interesting to see if he gets if he hits the trade market. All right, Doc. Appreciate you tuning in.
Appreciate you, Doc.
We'll be back next Wednesday. Jeff should be back next Wednesday, so we'll have a full crew to talk to you, and hopefully there's some more news. Hopefully there's some edge news.
Edge news, and just outside the box. Love and life's good. If you're into Netflix comedy specials, my brand of humor and should be your brand of humor. Felipe Esperanza, his Netflix special, you can't miss him. It's funny.
I'm not familiar.
The moment he starts talking till the moment he ends talking, you're going to laugh. And there's a bit there about adult activities that's hilarious. He is comedically funny. And his opening bit is like, people hitting him up for free tickets. And he's like, I don't need that kind of energy at my concerts. It's hilarious. I promise you'll laugh. Have a cocktail. Philippe, great comedy special. Live, laugh, have a good time. Check out the fellas. Let's talk soon, fellas.
What's going on there? It's Jeff Iafrate. Appreciate you for finishing the video. You can check out one of the videos here suggested or show support by commenting, liking, and subscribing. And buy your merchandise, officialctsports.com.